Yo, what's up guys? Here's a final update video on my 2004 rosters progress just before I release it, because I'm going to be releasing it in April. I have made 401 players, as you can see, in 44 goaltenders. I still have about 8 teams to do, so it should take me another week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, depending on how much time I get to play. But I'm going to show you guys all the jerseys for all the teams I've made so far, or all the teams I've made. And then I'll show you the lines for the teams I've done so far, and that will be it. And then basically what the rundown for the series is going to be, it's going to be like a 7-part series, or maybe less parts, depending on what. So basically, first episode I'm going to go through all this again, but with all the rosters, so you might it might be a bit repetitive, but you guys will get the point. The second episode will be a season simulation where I sim the entire season, and then we will have part 3, which will be the playoffs, well, at least the first 2 rounds. Part 3 will be the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, and then the next part after that will be the Stanley Cup Finals, which I will kind of do as like a highlight reel. And then we'll also have part 6 or something like that, which will actually put all the actual teams that played each other in the playoffs into like a playoff simulation, because like in this season simulation, some of the players might not actually make the teams that are playing each other. So like say Rangers might make the playoffs, but in real life back then they didn't actually make it, so that type of idea. And then the final episode, I might actually make even the Western and Eastern Conference All-Star teams. That's still up to you guys if you want to see that. And if I do that, then I'll do like an all-star simulation between the 2 of them. So otherwise, let's just get into the jerseys for each team. So starting off with the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, we got this jersey as their home. There's their away jersey, not their alternate. There's their alternate. I should actually still change the main jersey color to be kind of black, because it's actually kind of more of a black color, but I'll just leave it as this for now. But that's that. I've literally put like two months into making all these jerseys and lines and stuff like that, and now we're on to the Atlanta Thrashers. I realized also some players like Ilya Kovalchuk though are actually in NHL 17. It's just they're on the international rosters, so I'm gonna actually have to move some of those players over to teams. So if you see that Ilya Kovalchuk has no picture, he will have a picture, but once I actually edit the teams for that reason. So but anyways, Atlanta, here's their home jersey. Still looks the exact same as I last showed you guys. There's their away, and then here's their alternate. It kind of changed a bit, but like that blue color I might have to tone down a bit because it looks really bright. So that's the Atlanta Thrashers. On to the Boston Bruins, who I don't think I don't think they made the playoffs back then either, or they made the first round and got eliminated or something. But here's their home jersey. Like I said before, it looks similar to their current home jersey. There's their away jersey, and here's their alternate with the bear. I think that's a bear, at least it looks. Yeah, it looks like a bear. I don't know. EA has some weird custom logos, so that's what I use that one for. Then on to the Buffalo Sabres. This is what their jerseys look like. Here's their home jersey. It's that one, the black jersey, and it's got one of the EA custom logos that look like the current Buffalo, or well, ex-Buffalo logo that from 2007. So there's that. Here's their away jersey, and then here is their alternate, which is the red jersey with the swords. On to the Calgary Flames, who went to the Stanley Cup Final that year. I actually changed their jerseys up a bit, because if you guys remember in the last video I did with that, I showed you guys it did not look anything like the Calgary Flames jersey from back then, so I decided to revamp it a bit, so now it kind of looks more like it. As you can see, it's got the like V on the bottom instead. So that's the home jersey, and then here's the away jersey. and the alternate jersey, which actually originally has the horse where the Flames logo is, but EA doesn't have that logo, so I decided just to use the normal Flames logo for that. Carolina, I think I left it the same as last time, because it kind of looks like their jersey, except for it doesn't have like some icon type of things. I don't even know what to explain them as, but here's their home jersey, their away jersey, and their alternate jersey is their one from 2010, just because I had to throw in an alternate. Chicago Blackhawks, who were actually a shitty team back then. The only reason Chicago's good nowadays, in my opinion, is just because they have Taves and Kane. Like, they would still be in rebuild mode if they didn't have those two. So there's the jerseys right like that. As you can see, it's red, black, and white jerseys. Now on to the Colorado Avalanche, who have a very tank roster from way back then, who actually are probably one of the best teams in this simulation thing that we're going to be doing. I know now, like in this current season, they're playing like shit, but back then they had people like Joe Sakic, Timo Solani, Peter Forsberg, Paul Kariya, just to name a few players. So there's their home jersey, their away jersey, and their alternate jersey. This might be a bit of a long video, just so you know, but you guys probably will be interested in this, I assume. Hopefully you are as interested in it as I am. The Dallas Stars were actually pretty good back then as well. Obviously they had people like Mike Modano, Yuri Letnin, that sort of thing. So as you can see, I changed their jersey up a bit as well. I made that V on the bottom. Here's their away jersey and their alternate jersey, which originally has the bull. Once again, I can't get that exact green color that the Dallas Stars jersey actually had from back then, so I kind of got as good of the green as I could. So it's not the exact type of green. Detroit is the exact same as I had to start, even though it does not look anything like their jerseys from back then. It more looks like their Winter Classic type of style jerseys. So that's that. Once again, Detroit was also a very good team back in those days. They had Yzerman, Brett Hull, Shanahan, just to name a few players. Then you got the Edmonton Oilers, who were an okay team, but they didn't make the playoffs that season. They had people like Ryan Smith. Alex Hemsky was in his rookie season or his second season, I can't remember. There's their home jersey, away jersey, and their beautiful alternate jersey. Now onto the Florida Panthers. Florida once again was still in a bit of a rebuilding stage at that time. They had drafted Nathan Horton the year before. Horton was making his, I think that was his first season in the NHL. They also have like Olli Jokinen. Roberto Luongo was actually still their goaltender. That's their home jersey, their away jersey, and their alternate jersey. Their alternate jersey kind of looks more almost like the jersey that they used to wear in the 90s. And it was also currently, or I think it was an alternate jersey of theirs recently. The LA Kings were not a playoff team back in those days as well, I believe. They only had some good players like Alexander Frolov, who was in his first season. Who else was there? Roman Chikmanik, that type of idea. So there's their jerseys. They look kind of way too purpley to me, but I think it's the exact purple that they use, so I'll just leave it probably, or maybe darken it a bit. The Minnesota Wild hosted the All-Star game actually in 2004, if you guys didn't know. Best player on their team probably would be Marian Gaborik. They also had some young talent like Pierre-Marc Bouchard. Their goaltender at the time was Manny Fernandez, stuff like that. So there's their home, their away, and their alternate. They don't really look like their jerseys at all, but I tried to make them as best as I could. Now on to the Montreal Canadiens, who is one of the teams I hate the most, obviously being a Sens fan, as they beat my Senators yesterday. So their uniforms, here's their home jersey. It still looks like their current one. Then there's their away jersey, and their alternate jersey is the one that they used, that like their vintage one I showed you guys in last time what it was. So that one has a blue band across. Now on to the Nashville Predators, which was the last team I believe I showed you guys in my second look, I think my second look of my jerseys. Sorry, my voice is trying to go just because I've been doing a bunch of commentaries consecutively. So here is the home jersey, and then their away jersey, that gray could be a bit darker still, but it looks pretty nice. And then their alternate jersey looks pretty much like that, but I don't really like that gold color. Like, it's the exact color they would use, pretty much, but it's just really like, I don't even know how to explain it. It looks like a throw up kind of color. New Jersey, who was obviously a very good team back in those days, they had Martin Brodeur, Scott Niedermayer, Brian Rafalski. They also had people like Jamie Langenbrunner, Joe Nieuwendyk, who was actually traded to the... No, Joe Nieuwendyk wouldn't have been there. He was with the Leafs actually that season. But yeah, a few other players like that. Patrick Elias was actually 90 overall in NHL 2004. As you can see, their jerseys look pretty much like their ones currently, so that's what I did for them. On to the New York Islanders, and their jerseys actually look pretty nice. Their roster wasn't the greatest back then, but they actually did make the playoffs. They had people like Alexei Yashin, Michael Pekka, and Rick DiPietro was their starting goaltender. He dropped off the face of the earth, and he was a really bad goalie for a first overall pick. But here's their home jersey, their away jersey, and then their alternate is that nice orange jersey. I like how all these jerseys turned out. On to the New York Rangers, and the New York Rangers, like I said, we're not a playoff team, and I think the main reason is they traded away a lot of their players, good players during the season. Like, they traded away Brian Leetch to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They traded away who was it? They traded away the there was a couple players that they traded away. I'm trying to remember who. I know Brian Leetch was one of them, but yeah, anyways, they traded away some big studs during that season. Alexei Kovalev, I think, was one of them to Montreal. A few other players like that. And then Anson Carter. Pavel Bure actually retired the year before. Now on to the Ottawa Senators, and it doesn't really look like the Sens jersey from 2003-04. But it's the best I could do, so I just left it like that. They had good players. I was a big fan. That was my second season watching the NHL, so I know the players on that roster fairly well. Yeah, like Daniel Alfredson, Marian Hossa, Wade Britton, players like that. On to the Philadelphia Flyers, who made it to the third round before getting eliminated by the Tampa Bay Lightning. They actually eliminated the Leafs. I remember that series fairly well as well, because I remember Keith Primo getting a hat trick, and then the Flyers getting a penalty for it. Sorry, one sec, guys. I just need to clear my throat. Okay, guys, we are back. So the Flyers jersey, anyways, here's their home jersey, their away jersey, and then their alternate jersey is that orange jersey. They all turned out pretty decently. A lot of these jerseys are on the actual teams, but I wanted to make the teams separate just because that way I could still have, like, I could do like the current Flyers versus the old Flyers, that type of idea. Now on to the Phoenix Coyotes, who are now the Arizona Coyotes. They did not make the playoffs. They were still a bit in rebuilding stage. Best player being Shane Doan, as he's always been. They also had people like Mike Sillinger. Mike Comrie was also pretty good. He came over from Edmonton, and also he actually played for the Flyers too that season. So those are their jerseys. The black one's just a custom-made jersey. I didn't know what to put it as, so I just made a black one because they did actually have a black jersey in 2010. So I decided to use that. Now on to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Pittsburgh was one of the worst teams in the league, and you'd be like, how though, because they have Mary Lemieux, but I realized when I was looking through the rosters, Mary Lemieux actually was out for almost the entire season, only playing 10 games. I don't know if it was due to his cancer or what, but yeah, he was not playing much that season. So here's their home jersey, their away jersey, and their alternates, just a random custom one I threw together. Also, St. Louis, actually, Al McInnes, he didn't play that much during that season either because of his eye injury, which actually forced him to retire. St. Louis did make the playoffs though still, so team uniforms for the St. Louis Blues. So here's their home jersey. It actually looks kind of like their current home jersey. They kind of went back to it after changing, I think it was last season or the season before. Here's their away jersey, and then their alternates kind of more supposed to look like their vintage jersey, which they wore for a few games, I believe, that season. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Oh, I skipped the San Jose Sharks, actually. We have the San Jose Sharks first. San Jose did make the playoffs this year, but they didn't have the best roster. They had people like Patrick Marleau, Jonathan Chichu, who was in his second or third season, I believe. They also had Evgeny Nabokov, that type of idea, Vincent Damphousse, a couple others. And yeah, there's their black alternate jersey. So now on to the Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, who actually have a pretty bad overall team though for this game, or for 2004 at least. Their first lines are pretty good though. I'll show you still guys the lines right after this for every team. But so here's the home jersey, their away jersey, and the alternate jersey that I just randomly threw together. So yeah, basically Tampa Bay though had like Vincent Lecavalier, Brad Richards, Martin St. Louis, Dave Anderchuk was the captain, that type of idea. I literally just finished making the Vancouver roster, so here is their jerseys. X-Tech would like this. Here's their home jersey. I couldn't, like, as you can see, it still says Vancouver on the jersey, but it's very hard to see. It's just really annoying that it still shows through even though it's the exact same color. There's the away jersey, and then here's their alternate jersey, which looks kind of like their current home jersey. Good players on their team back then, obviously Naslund, Dan Kluche, Todd Bertuzzi. Even though I think that season was when he got suspended for sucker punching Steve Moore. Vancouver did make the playoffs though that season, so because they played Calgary in round 1 and they got eliminated. So here's the Washington Capitals, who were one of the worst teams as well, obviously, as they drafted Alexander Ovechkin, I believe, at the first overall pick that season. So that's their home jersey, their away jersey, and a random alternate I just threw together. So that's all the jerseys and stuff like that. Let's get on to the lines for the teams that I've made so far. We're almost up here at 20 minutes, which is kind of long, but you guys hopefully you're sticking around for this. Put a lot of work into making all this. So okay, on to the lines. So for the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, because I made those, their rosters. So here's their offensive line, best player being Sergei Fedorov. Defensively, their best player being Sandis Ozolinsh. Goaltending wise, they got J.S. Shagirin as the starter and Gerber as the backup. And scratched, we have Ilya Brzgalov, who played like 4 games during that season. Then on to the Atlanta Thrashers, which have 2 really good players in Heatley and Kovalchuk, but the rest of the team is pretty shitty. So there's the, Heatley's the best player on the team. And then there's Kovalchuk. I actually have to put the actual Kovalchuk player there. So yeah, 89 overall. Patrick Stefan, who was a big bust. He was the first overall pick as well. He's most known for missing an empty net. Goaltending wise, they're really weak though with Nurminen and Defoe. Then you go on to the Boston Bruins, who have a very good first line center and winger, a couple good ringers as well. So Joe Thornton, obviously 94 overall, very good. 88 Glenn Murray and 89 Sergei Samsonov are their best offensive players. Defensively, they're a bit weak, and I actually still have to make Nick Boynton because I realized I didn't make him. So But yeah, their defense is kind of weak. Goaltending wise, they have Felix Potvin is the starter. I don't know if he was the actual starter back then because he was signed as a free agent. And then Andrew Raycroft, who was in his first NHL season. I think he actually won the Calder as the Rookie of the Year. Then you got the Buffalo Sabres, who had some great players. Chris Drury, who was in '89, he actually was the captain, and Daniel Briere was also apparently a captain, I believe, that season. I think one of them was like the home captain, one of them was the away captain. So, and then you also got people like Miro Shatan, Maxim Afinogenov, so on like that. Then you got defensively, you got Alexei Zhitnik, who's their best defenseman. Goaltending wise, you got Martin Biron, who's now working on TSN, followed by his backup, which is Mika Norinen. There's a lot of scratch players on this team, so Ryan Miller being one of them, because Ryan Miller was a rookie during that season or the season before. So Calgary now, the Western Conference champions. You got Iginla, obviously, who's the best player, 93 overall. Then you got a couple other players like Dean McCammon and Conroy and Jelena, who are all pretty decent. Defensively, you got some good defensemen that are kind of low overall wise. You got Andrew Ferentz, you got Dennis Gauthier, Tony Lidman, Robin Regier. Goaltending wise, Mika Kibrasov actually was not a 90, he was an 80 overall in NHL 2004, but I had to make him good because he did go to the Stanley Cup Finals after all. And then his backup is Jamie McLennan. Scratch players are all these players. I'm going to probably make Roman Turek down to an 80, just because, yeah, he did not play really much that season, but he was also one of their goaltenders. You also got Steve Montador, rest in peace. Jason Green, who's actually still playing in Europe and Finland, I believe. And then you have Dave Lowry, who also, I think he's related to Adam Lowry of the Winnipeg Jets. I believe he's his dad or something. Now into Carolina, and Carolina has Eric Stahl, who was in his rookie season that year, I believe, or the year before. Ron Francis, this guy actually was traded to Toronto that season, so he won't be there for most of this simulation probably. You also got Jeff O'Neill, who works on TSN. Radim Verbata, who plays still for not the Canucks anymore, Arizona. And you got Rob Brindamore, who is a very good center. Eric Cole, rest in peace, Josef Vasicek. Defensively, you got Sean Hill and Brett Hedican is the best. Everybody else is a little worse. Aaron Ward's also there from TSN. Kevin Weeks is also an analyst, actually. He was on CBC. I don't know where he is now. He is their starting goaltender, followed by Jamie Storr. Scratch, they actually have Arturs Urbe, because Urbe was getting close to retiring that season. So there's that. Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a long video, guys, which I apologize for. Chicago, you got Eric Dezay, Tyler Arneson. Tuomo Ruutu was an 88 overall, but he was in Finland in NHL 2004's game. I don't know if that's why he was listed as an 88, but Tuomo Ruutu was in his rookie season, I believe, so he's an 88. And then you also got Steve Sullivan, who went to Nashville that season. He was an 87, and a couple other great players. You got Brian Berard as the best defenseman. The rest of the defense is really weak. Jason Strudwick's is 69 overall. Goaltending wise, you got Jocelyn Thibault, who didn't actually play most of the season, so I might have to scratch him. Craig Anderson was the backup and / starter once Thibault was injured or whatever it was. Obviously he's still the center's goaltender. And then scratched, you got Alexei Zhamnov. I only scratched him because he went to the Flyers that season, but I might unscratch him. You also got Karpatsev, who went to the Islanders that season. Dempsey went to the Kings, and Nieminen went to the Flames, if I remember correctly. This is going to be over 30 minutes. So, Colorado, as I was saying, it was a very tank team. You got 97 Peter Forsberg with 91 Hayduk. You got 93 Paul Kariya, 92 Sakic, 89 Solani, Tanguay and Connor Walchuk, and then a couple other guys, including Steve Moore, who had his bell rung by Todd Pertuzzi. Defensively, they're really strong, as well as you can see Adam Foote, Rob Blake, Derek Morris, Martin Skula, John Michael Isles, and rest in peace, Carlos Scratchtons. Goaltending wise, they're a bit weak as well. David Abisher and Philip Sobe. Now on to the Dallas Stars, who, as I said, had some good players as well. Mike Modano, obviously. So their first line has 88 Brendan Morrow. Brendan Morrow was a very good player back then. You also got Mike Modano and Bill Guerin. You got Yuri Lettinen, Jason Arnott, Pierre Turgeon, a couple other players, Steve Otts there, Nico Kapanen, who actually still plays. Defensively, you have the really good offensive defenseman, 89 overall, Sergei Zubov with Numanen, Philip Boucher, a couple other guys there as well. Trevor Daley will be added to this team as well because he did actually play there, I believe, during his rookie season or his second season. Turco's the starting goaltender, and the backup is Ron Tugnutt. Now on to the Edmonton Oilers. You got Ryan Smith with Sean Horkov, Radek Dvorak. You got Brad Isbister, Adam Oates, who was in his, I think it was his last season in the NHL or second last season. And then you also got Mike York, and then a couple other players including Jarrett Stoll and Alex Hemsky, and also Rafi Torres, who came over from the Islanders, I believe, the season before. Defensively, you got Eric Brewer, who was an 88, and Jason Smith, who was an 82. And then goaltending wise, you got Tommy Salo, who was an 89. I don't know why he dropped off the face of the earth after this season. You also got Ty Conklin, who's from Alaska. And on to the Minnesota Wild, goddammit. Minnesota, we actually didn't make the team yet. It's still their current roster, so don't worry about that. But they do have Marian Gaborik. So Montreal, their team is okay-ish. I don't know why Ribeiro's so low, but Jan Bulis with Koivu and Zednik, these two are very good, 88, 87. Mike Ribeiro should be higher, but he's only a 71 overall. You also got Yannick Perreault. Michael Ryder, I had to give him a custom overall. He was actually one of the best rookies that season. Defensively, you got Andrei Markov, who still plays. Patrice Brisebois, Craig Rivet, Stefan Cantel, Bouillon, and Soare. So they're actually a pretty solid defensive team. And then you got Jose Theodore, who's 91 overall, and Mathieu Guérin, who's an 82. And yes, I tried to make that sound French, even though I'm not French. New Jersey, one of the best teams from back in the 2000s. So you got Eliash, who's 90 overall, Scott Gomez, who's an 86. I know what people say, oh, Gomez sucks, because when he was with Montreal, he didn't score much, but he actually was a very good player with New Jersey, and I believe he won the Calder Memorial Trophy as the Rookie of the Year in 2001 or 2002. And you got Jamie Langenbrunner, 89. John Madden, Jeff Friesen was 89. I don't know why he wasn't 89, but he was. You also got Brian Gionta, who obviously still plays with Buffalo. Defensively, you got Niedermeyer, who's an 88. Rafalski, who's an 84. And Scott Stevens actually missed a lot of the season as well, but he was an 84, and obviously known for his hitting category, which I put up to a 99, I believe. Yeah, body checking, 98. As you can see, his physical is 5 stars. Everything else is kind of low, because he did put up some points in his career, but he was just not. He was more known for his hitting. So, and then you got Martin Brodeur, not Biron, who is a 95 overall, and then Scott Clemenson, who was a 75. So, a very good starting goaltender, obviously, but a very weak backup. But I think Clemenson actually did play pretty good that season, if I remember correctly. Then on to the New York Islanders. You got Mark Parrish, Michael Pekka, Jason Blake, Alexei Yashin, Kavasha, those type of dudes. Cliff Ronning, who actually follows me on Twitter, so that's pretty cool. You got Roman Hamrlik, Yanni Niedema, Adrian Aucoin, who went to the All-Star game, Kenny Johansson, that's her dude. Goaltenders, you got Rick DiPietro and Garth Snow, who's currently the owner, I believe, of the Islanders, or general manager, I don't remember which one. Rangers-wise, you got Matthew Barnaby, who is known for his fighting and stuff like that, and scoring actually too, with Eric Lindros and Alexei Kovalev, who went to Montreal that season. Then Anson Carter, who went to Washington or LA that season. Bobby Holik, Peter Nedved, Mark Messier was in his last season in the NHL. Martin Ruchinski, someone like that. Defensively, you got Brian Leach, Tom Pody, Joel Bouchard, Boris Mironov, Malikov, Kasparidis. But Leach went to the Toronto Maple Leafs that season. And in goaltending, you got Mike Dunham and UC Markkinen. Yeah, this is a very long video. Now on to the Ottawa Senators, who were my favorite team from back then. You got Martin Havlat with Todd White, Daniel Alfredson, Marian Hossa, Brian Smolinski, Radek Bonk, Mike Fisher, a couple other dudes. Jason Spezza is a 73 overall. Chris Neal is a 72. And then you got Wade Redden, Zdeno Chara, Chris Phillips, a couple other dudes. And goaltending wise, you got Patrick Lalime and Martin Prusik. Now on to the Philadelphia Flyers. Yeah, we still have like quite a bit more teams to show you. 5 more teams. Hopefully you guys stick around for this all. Probably not though. Mark Recchi on the first line with Jeremy Roenick and Tony Amonte. Really good first line there. And then Simone Gagne, 86, Keith Primo, 87, John LeClaire, Kapanen and Hanzus, and then Dallenberg down here. So as you can see, they have a very good center core and stuff like that. The funny thing is Patrick Sharp is at 69 overall. Then defensively, Eric Desjardins, Kim Johnson, Chris Tyrion, and Marcus Regensson, a couple other dudes. Goaltending wise, you got Robert Esch, who I changed it to Hackett's overall and Hackett to Esch's overall because Esch was the starting goaltender back then and Jeff Hackett was the backup. So I decided just to change their 2 overalls so then it's be kind of the same still for their goaltending wise. Phoenix, now you got Ladislav Nagy, who actually still plays on Slovakia's international team, which I have to add to. There's Damon Lankow, Mike Johnson, Shane Doan, Mike Comrie, Chris Granton. You also got Branko Radovojevic, who still plays. Mike Sillinger, that type of idea. Ozzy Vananen still plays for Finland's team. David Tanabe, Paul Mera, that type of idea. Goaltenders, you got Sean Burke, who went to the Flyers that season, and Brian Boucher. On to the... what team next? The St. Louis Blues. You got Keith the Chuck with Pavel Dimitrov, rest in peace again. Scott Mellenby, Doug Waite, Eric Boganecki, Jamal Mayers, and Dallas Drake. A couple other dudes. Mike Danton, who was known for going to jail, I believe, back in those days. For some reason, I can't remember the exact reason. You got Baird Jackman with Al McInnes, who obviously was a very good defenseman. You got Chris Pronger, who is still on Arizona's roster in this game. So him with Kavanagh, Salvador, and Finley. Goaltending wise, you got Chris Osgood, who is a very good goaltender, obviously. And Reinhard Davis, who is an Austrian goaltender. Not that there's much of those in the NHL. Tampa Bay, you got their first line with Corey Stillman, Vincent Lecavalier, and Martin St. Louis. Then you got Freddie Modine, Brad Richards, who was a kind of a low overall for such a good player, and Ruslan Fedotenko. Dave Anderchuk is the captain. He was close to retiring that season. I think he retired the year afterwards. You got Kubina with Boyle and a few other defensemen. Goaltending wise, you got the Bulin Wall and Nikolai Heavy Bulin, and a good backup in John Graham. And in Toronto and in Vancouver, and that is it. Toronto, we got Gary Roberts with Matt Sundin, who obviously was a very good player, and Alexander McGinley. And then you also got Owen Nolan, Joe Nieuwendyk. Nick Antropov's actually on Kazakhstan's team, so I have to add him. And then Ponikarovsky's actually on Ukraine's team, so I have to add him from that. Stajan's the only one of these guys that still play on their forward core. Defensively, they got Thomas Caberlet, who's on a free agency. Brian McCabe, Brian Marchman, a couple other dudes. Goaltenders, you got Ed Belfour, who was a very good goaltender back in those days. And you got Trevor Kidd as his backup. And then finally, the Vancouver Canucks. you got some very good players here like Marcus Naslund, Brendan Morrison, Todd Bertuzzi. You got Trevor Linden. Matt Cook was actually a better overall in this game than Henrik and Daniel Sedin. Don't ask me why, but that was what EA had it as. You also have Magnus Arvidsson, who was a very good player, but his career ended early because of an injury. You got Chubarov, Brad May. Ryan Kessler was in his rookie season that year. I gave him a custom overall as well because he wasn't actually in the game. Mike Keane. Defensively, you got Ed Jovanovski, who was a very good defenseman. Matthias Olin, Sammy Salo, Merrick Malik, known for his shootout goal, and Brent Sopel. Goaltending wise, you got Dan Kluche and Johan Hedberg. So anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for this look at my roster stuff. Sorry it took me like 30 something minutes to go through all this, but hopefully you guys liked it. If you stuck around to the end, make sure to leave a like. Thanks guys for watching. See you guys next time.